Welcome, I'm Terry Christensen, and this is Valley Politics, our show on politics and public policy in San Jose and Silicon Valley. Schools are back in session, so today we'll talk with two San Jose Unified School District trustees about education, politics, and policy. Later, San Jose Vice Mayor Rose Herrera gives us an update on District 8, that's the Evergreen area. And we close our show today with the second part of a three-part interview with Blanca Alvarado, which includes her memories of her time in office as a city council member. All this next on Valley Politics. Welcome everyone, and welcome Teresa Castellanos and Susan Ellenberg.
Okay.
Teresa, you were elected to the San Jose Unified School Board of Trustees in 2012, and Susan, you were elected in 2014. It's a big job. You have 33,000 students, 1,750 teachers, a $350 million budget, and it's a majority-minority district. So tell us why you wanted to take that job on.
I came to an interest in this school board through the lens of my day job, really. I'm a social justice educator, and some of the things that I teach my students are that the most important or the most effective way to implement change when you see injustice is through social activism and political advocacy. So that's something that's always in my head, and when my daughter started at Lincoln High School 2 years ago, I learned about a policy that the board at the time was considering implementing, and it was a policy that I found, from what I understood of it as an outsider, to have some social justice implications, and that made me think that if I wasn't happy with it, maybe I needed to have a voice on the board.
Okay. Teresa?
I consider myself a community organizer. I've been involved with labor, with immigrant issues, and the year before the election, I remember I was sitting through the budget hearing, and it was a time of economic crisis, and I had to be there because of the program that I work with, but I got to hear a lot of people give testimony around housing, around health, around women's issues, around children's issues. And for some reason, it clicked in my head that these are really hard decisions to make for the Board of Supervisors because we did not have enough people in the pipeline. And so obviously they were doing the best they could for the county, but it wasn't at the county where things were stuck at. It was much higher. And it clicked in my head that we needed, as progressives, to run for office and to be at the table, because we had taught the community how to speak, we had taught the community how to engage, but we still weren't getting the decisions we needed to get because the pipeline didn't go far enough.
Most people probably don't know that you actually represent more voters than San Jose City Council members do. What did you have to do in your campaign to succeed? You both won with significant opponents, but you won by significant margins. How'd you do that? Start, Teresa.
It was a multicultural campaign, and I don't mean just by language, but I mean that we looked at the whole district, we looked at who we needed to engage, and we looked at non-traditional voters as well as new voters. And I think that was something new in our campaign. That
most campaigns focus on the people who always
they look
vote.
But in that case, I thought, well, you've already made up your mind if you always vote. So that's going to be harder to convince you. And so our thinking was, let's engage the new voters. And what was interesting about it is, a few blocks from where I lived, when I knocked on doors, people said, oh, I've lived here 30 years and no one's ever knocked on my door.
I would have said that.
Yep.
Susan?
Well, the knocking was certainly a big part of it. The campaign essentially was just a tremendous amount of learning and work. I had to learn about campaigns in general, political campaigns, about education policy, about the work of the school board, and I talked to a lot of smart people. I listened to their advice, and I knocked on virtually every door, every door in my area. Spent a lot of time talking to and listening to constituents, school parents, community members, and really didn't rest until the evening of the election. I think there are no shortcuts
No.
to that, but it's effective if we put in the time.
Did you have to raise a lot of money?
Yes. We raised about $80,000 and spent virtually all of it on a number of mailings. Primarily was where the money went.
What about you, Teresa?
We raised about 30. And I think Jorge had raised 4,000.
Jorge was your predecessor.
Yes. So I mean, it's getting more expensive.
Yeah. Tell us what the job. Tell us a little bit about the job. How much time does it take? How much does it pay?
It pays a stipend of $727 a month.
Wow.
So clearly we are in this for the money.
Yeah.
And I would say that the minimum commitment as a trustee is that we have 2 board meetings a month, both of which require several hours of preparation before, reading all of the materials, occasionally calling staff for clarification or questions. We are all on 1 or 2 committees in the district, so that's generally 1 more meeting a month. So I would say that comes out to about 15 hours a month roughly. But something that I'm finding is that through my role as a trustee, I've been given access to participate in a number of other projects that are related to education policy. So I've taken advantage of that by getting involved with other work and committees that are not directly related to the board, but are certainly related to improving education outcomes for our students.
And every school has 3 or 4 community events a month. And so it's not like you go to every event, but you try to at least make it to every school once a quarter. It's a lot of work. I think it's important, very important, but it's a much bigger commitment than I thought it was going to be. Very well worth it in terms of the commitment. But I think that many times we don't realize how much it takes, how much it is a part of the community, and how much we need to give it more credit and more due. I mean, because I think schools create community without a doubt.
Yes.
And that as a society, we've kind of lost that sense of this is where community comes from.
You both have full-time jobs, right?
My job is part-time.
So you have 2 part-time jobs.
Yes.
And you have a full-time
I have
job
a
and a
Full-time job
part-time
and a
job.
part-time.
Yes.
Well, this is classic for a school trustees, most of whom aren't education professionals. They're part-time at their job as trustee, and they have to deal with constantly the full-time professionals, the superintendent of the school district, who the board appoints, and the other professionals. And my impression is that a lot of the time, the board of trustees is really just rubber stamping the recommendations of the professionals. Do you think that's true? And have you been able to move the professionals away from a recommendation more in the direction of what you want?
I don't think we necessarily rubber stamp.
You're not rubber stamps?
No. I mean, obviously we trust the staff we hired, and we trust the leadership, and we trust the direction because we're part of that policy making process. And obviously they have more time to spend in this than we do. So there's a lot of trust that's going in 2 different directions. But I don't think it's necessarily rubber stamp. I think sometimes it's quick. Sometimes there is not the dialogue that I wish that we could have around education. But I don't also think that it's just us as trustees and school staff that should be having that dialogue.
Yes.
I think all of us should be having that dialogue about what does education mean and why is it not a priority in the state of California?
I think we are elected specifically to represent our constituencies and not to become additional professional educators on the board. And I don't believe that our job is, I agree, not necessarily to second guess professional decisions. For example, a place that I might defer to board expertise is on choice of textbooks. Our job is to look at the school district from a more global sense and hold the superintendent accountable. Are children receiving a high quality education? What's the evidence of that? How are we measuring it? And the details are essentially the superintendent's job to oversee the staff and make sure that things are working to achieve the goals that the board sets for the school district. So no, we don't rubber stamp. a lot of times we do find that the recommendations of the staff make sense, and in cases where they don't, a place where we've recently, I think, redirected the board has been in the conversation over the last year about the facilities and a number of programs that are being moved around in the district. I think the staff initially had one perception of the way that the plan should be rolled out and communicated and outcomes that should happen. And I think we've been able to really create a shift over the last really several months, but kind of coming over the last year to be more communicative, more collaborative, and working with constituents in a different way as opposed to simply disseminating and presenting information. And I think that shift is due to the influence of the board.
Without a doubt.
Okay. What issue in education concerns you most right now, Teresa?
For me, it's the issue of funding.
Funding.
I think we don't realize that as a state that we fund at 47. When
we rank 47th
we
among the
fund
states.
at 47, and we are the richest state of the nation.
Yeah.
And so we are not investing in the future. Obviously, everyone wants the best for their kids, but as a society, as a state, we have not said this is a priority. And we moved from 49 to 47 in the last, in the shift with the economy. It's still 47.
Mm-hmm.
And so how are you surprised by the outcomes when you're not willing to invest in what this means? And especially in Silicon Valley, because I think in Silicon Valley, we are in a 21st century economy. And if we're not teaching kids how to find their passions, they're going to have very difficult futures. Because if you can't reinvent yourself, you're not going to find a job that's a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year job. You're going to have to know what is your passion to reinvent yourself over and over again, because that's the kind of economy we've developed. And so my biggest concern is that we're all focused on me and my child, but we're not focused on our children. And we need to shift that focus for our children so that all of us can benefit. Because as a state, we're creating this huge gap. And that's the gap between the very poor and the very rich, and very limited middle class. So that is my concern.
Susan, top issue?
I would agree with funding, and some of the issues that are priorities for me that I think fall out of the umbrella that Teresa mentioned are the shortage of teachers, significant and very concerning decline in the number of new candidates and applicants entering the teaching field.
Yes.
And I'm sure those are both at least in significant part due to funding. And another issue that concerns me a lot is the tremendous variation in access to early childhood education, and the difference that you can already see in children entering kindergarten who has had that very enriched early childhood experience and who is walking into a classroom literally for the first time in their lives.
What about teacher pay? I think the average pay in San Jose Unified is $61,000 a year. People can't live in Silicon Valley on that. They need to have spousal support.
So happily, your number was a little bit off.
Oh, good.
We did do that research. The average teacher in San Jose Unified has been on the job for 15 years, and the average salary at 15 years is $75,000 plus a benefits package that's about $25,000, $15,000 of that.
Benefits meaning health insurance.
Health benefits,
yeah.
right.
Retirement.
STIRS, retirement.
Yeah.
So is
that's
that
better.
livable? It's better. And I was playing with the numbers a little bit, and the ideal that we talk about is that 30% of your salary should be spent on rent or a mortgage payment. And at $75,000, 30% only brings you to about $1,700, $1,800 a month, which really is inadequate. But it also seems to me to be much more the norm in this community, that people are spending far more than 30%.
Yeah.
At 50% of their salary, they're in a $3,000 plus range, which certainly is more livable. But the question overall is affordability of living in Silicon Valley. Unless you're really in the very top tier of high-paying tech jobs and professional jobs, it is incredibly difficult to live here.
And then we're right back to the issue Teresa raised.
Exactly.
It's all about funding.
Yeah.
Well, and
Teresa Castellanos and Susan Ellenberg, I'm sorry we're out of time. There are so many more things we could talk about. It's such an important topic. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome.
Now let's hear what some residents have to say about our schools. Then we'll move on to neighborhood news covering District 8 with Vice Mayor Rose Herrera.
The natural thing is to save money, but I'm not sure that's the whole picture. I think it's being able to work together with children as the basic need and focus on that. I think there's a lot of power struggles in schools between administrators and teachers.
The biggest issue is that we get judged about how we look, or our education's not that well. Probably that the rich neighborhood got a better education than the poor neighborhood. It's not equal at all.
Budget, they need to put more teachers and allow more resources to the school and give proper education.
I think the biggest issue is the amount of kids that are getting into drugs at an early age, and parents not being aware of it, thinking that they're the innocent kids, and giving them so much reign over freedom because they have to work. A lot of people have to work 2 jobs to stay up with providing a good life for their families, so they don't get the parenting that they should.
Hello, I'm Vice Mayor Rose Herrera. I'm honored to be your Vice Mayor and representative of Southeast San Jose and Evergreen, District 8, since 2008. Over the past 7 years, we've worked to get tangible things done, like the Highway 101 improvements, a new transit mall at Eastridge, lighting and pedestrian improvements along Capitol Expressway, which is Phase 1 of the Capitol to Eastridge Light Rail project, connecting East Side to BART and beyond. There is still more to come. Our new 16,000 square foot public library, the Village Square Library, will be opening in early 2016, with a 1,200 square foot indoor-outdoor community room to accommodate the need for more public meeting space in Evergreen. Our new fire station on White Road across from Lake Cunningham Regional Park includes room for expansion to multiple engine companies and a community meeting room. I've worked to build and empower our wonderfully diverse community. Since 2007, Evergreen comes together every summer to enjoy the very popular music and movie nights at the Village Square. It's a time where neighbors bring a picnic dinner, spend time with their family and friends, and get to know their neighbors while enjoying local food, cool live music, and a family-friendly movie on a large outdoor screen. Recently at this event, the community honored our own San Jose Police Department. We've worked hard to improve public safety in Evergreen by supporting efforts to retain and increase police officers and participating in over 50 neighborhood watch meetings in homes throughout Evergreen. Instead of having to travel far away, soon our Evergreen and Eastside families can look forward to playing Little League tournament games in a new ball field complex across from Eastridge. I strongly advocated for this site, and I'm thrilled to have secured a big win with a donation of 12 acres of land from Arcadia Companies for the soon-to-be constructed citywide complex in East San Jose. This facility will welcome everyone from all over the city and will allow children and adults to play competitive baseball and softball on state-of-the-art fields. We've supported another successful year of summer swim programs at local high schools for the community, including Overfeld High School, where swim lessons and open swim times have given another generation of kids and families a chance to access low-cost recreation and water safety training. I learned to swim at this program. San Jose supports veterans, and as the veteran liaison to the council and with the support of the mayor and council, we approved the request by the veterans organizations to fly the POW MIA flag 365 days a year at City Hall, and will begin doing so on September 18, 2015, with an official ceremony honoring the service of all POW MIAs from all wars and conflicts. I made the pitch for San Jose in July for a project that will mean more good, high-skilled manufacturing jobs for local residents. The good news is we won the bid from the Department of Defense, and FlexTech's Alliance will establish and manage a Manufacturing Innovation Institute for Flexible Hybrid Electronics headquartered in San Jose. Please visit my website, www.district8@sanjoseca.gov, and I look forward to seeing you out in our community. Thank you.
Now it's time for Where Are They Now? Today we present the second part of our exclusive interview with Blanca Alvarado, covering her time in office as a council member and highlighting her challenges and accomplishments.
When I was elected to the city council, it was a traumatic experience for me because all of a sudden I'm inheriting the poorest district in the entire city, the one with the least means, economic means to support itself or to do for itself. And the poverty in this area, the housing was in such disarray, and we had some of the worst barrios and conditions that could be found anywhere. And then we had cruising. We had cruising on Story Road, which is a cultural phenomenon on one hand, but it was creating enormous problems here for the residents of Story Road. I mean, this was the cruising capital of the world, Terry, and people came from all over California to cruise on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
I remember in downtown too.
And Jim McEntee would come out here from the Office of Human Relations because there was a lot of drug dealing, there were a lot of youth that were congregating out there. And for the residents, you couldn't get into your driveway. You couldn't get emergency vehicles. I mean, it was really, really difficult.
So you introduced policies that changed that?
Yes, and believe me, I received a tremendous amount of criticism.
I'll bet.
The car clubs, oh my God, I was the vendida for having sold
The
out.
sellout.
But one of the things that I remember about that as well that is worth noting is when I first made an attempt to do something about the cruising, Joe McNamara, who
Police
was
chief.
chief of police at the time, came forward to the city council and said, no, leave it alone. It's a cultural thing. The city council ought not to interfere there. I was so stunned that the chief of police, who knew very well about all of the other illegal activities that were taking place under this cultural phenomenon, would come forward and speak in opposition to my ideas to do something about changing conditions there. And it's because he was beloved of the Latino community. And he understood that for the Latino community, cruising was an acceptable lifestyle. And of course the cars were beautiful and there was a lot of romance associated with it. But there was a lot of negativity associated. But finally, Joan Gallo, to this day, I give
Joan Gallo was the city attorney.
She was the city attorney. She worked out a procedure whereby the first step that we did was to get all of the merchants to post no cruising, no parking signs on their properties. Because those parking lots used to get full of cars as well. It's not only the cruisers on the road, but the parking lots used to get full as well. And so she devised a plan whereby, and the merchants agreed, that if there were no parking signs posted on their property, then the police could enforce that aspect of the law. The next thing that she did was to carve out an exemption for a cruising ordinance that would allow no cruising within a certain sphere of influence. Anyway, it was Joan Gallo with her brilliant legal mind and the city council finally convinced that we needed to improve conditions on Story Road because of the cruising, that we got the no cruising ordinance, which to this day works and is in effect. But the outcome as well, not only did it create some peace and some harmony on Story Road, but it also paved the way for the other kinds of improvements that we were able to do. Like on Popoway, it was the worst possible slum. Rat infested, drug dealing, and I will forever be grateful to Alex Sanchez because
Director of Housing at that time.
He was the Director of Housing, but if you will remember, we had another big issue at the City Council where Jim Bell and I led the effort to create the separate housing department and to take it out of redevelopment. Well, Alex Sanchez was the first housing director, and we brought him from Santa Ana. And one day he said, Blanca, we gotta do something about Pokaway. Let's go down to Santa Ana and I will show you models of what we did over there. We went to Santa Ana, I saw how he transformed similar kinds of residential areas in Santa Ana. He came back and carved out a complete master plan to redo Poco Way, which included buying out the absentee landlords and tearing some of the units down, rebuilding, engaging the community to plan the park that would be adjacent to Arbuckle School, which is right next to Poco Way. In other words, he was able to help me convince the city council that $35 million was needed out of redevelopment funds to improve that neighborhood.
There are a couple other projects you pushed for I have to ask you about. Quetzalcoatl, the statue in Plaza de Cesar Chavez, and the Mexican Heritage Plaza. You came in for a fair amount of criticism on both of those projects.
Yes.
What's your feeling about them now? Do you have regrets about those?
None at all.
No regrets?
None at all.
Okay.
Except one regret that I hope to pursue soon, and that is that the disrespect and the dishonor that has been directed at the Plume Serpent, including by those who call it ugly names, they need to correct the record, because the Plume Serpent is none of that.
Critics at the time said there would be human sacrifices there
know.
because of it.
Oh, yeah.
That hasn't happened.
No, of course not.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
What about Mexican?
But the Mexican Heritage, oh my God.
You think it's working now? It's had a rough
Well,
time getting up
every
to scale and
institution
functioning.
has a rough time getting
Yeah.
started. And when we came out here to build it in the place where Cesar Chavez first began his boycott against the Safeway was symbolically important, but that piece of land was chosen with the work done by the Trust for Public Lands, where we could build a cultural center that represented the Latino Mexican American community. If you will recall, when Tom McHenry was mayor, he invited me one day, and again, I'm grateful to Tom, because he said, Blanca, we have a lot of ethnic parks in the city. Japanese Friendship Gardens, Chinese Overfell, the Rose Garden. Maybe we should start thinking about a park that commemorates the first settlers, which were the Mexicans, and the most recent settlers, which are the Vietnamese. What evolved out of that discussion was this magnificent idea that a cultural center would be the means by which other people could come and learn about the culture of the East Side and not be frightened or intimidated. We thought it could be a gateway. We thought it could be a meeting place where other people from other backgrounds could use the facility and where we could express ourselves culturally. And it was a wonderful idea, it really was. So we built it. And the only regret—
Redevelopment agency funds, right?
Alum Rock Avenue, redeveloped, it was a neighborhood business district.
Yeah.
The only regret that I have is that we should have listened to what Brian Taylor was saying back then.
He was the director of the
He was
redevelopment
the
agency.
director, he says, Blanca, 500-seat theater is really going to be hard to fill. You really should consider a smaller one. But we had a large group of community interests that were involved in the planning. And we said, no. We think that 500-seat theater is adequate. We will be able to fill it. Well, Frank Taylor was right.
Yeah.
We probably should have built a smaller theater. On the other hand, now that it went through its transitional phase and has evolved into the School of Arts and Culture, it's a beautiful setting. And everybody that goes there has a wonderful time. And there are weddings, there are quinceañeras, there are all kinds of social activities, cultural activities taking place. It is flourishing, and it evolved, and it is, it's doing well.
I hope you're inspired by Blanca and our other guests to get involved and make a difference in your own community. Meanwhile, please visit our website at creatvsj.org or email your comments to us at valleypolitics@creatvsj.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, where you can post your comments and suggest guests or topics. And now that's all, folks. Thanks for watching Valley Politics today. See you next time.